Data persisters are the way to do logic before or after something saves. But what if you want to do something only when your object is being created, or only when it's being updated, or maybe only when a specific field changes from one value to another? Let's talk about all of that. Here's our first goal. Log a message only when a user is created in our API. And this one is pretty simple. Start by adding a third argument to the constructor for logger interface logger. I'll hit Alt-Enter and go to Initialize Properties as a shortcut to create that property and set it. Down and persist. Since this is an entity, we don't need to do anything fancy to determine if the object is being created versus updated. We can say, if not data arrow get ID, then log something. This arrow logger arrow info, sprintf, user %s just registered. Eureka! And pass data arrow get email. That's it. Custom code for when a user is created, which in a real app might be sending a registration email or throwing a party. I'm guessing this will all work, but let's at least make sure we didn't break anything. Symfony PHP bin/PHP unit -- filter equals test create user. Cool. So let's do something a bit harder. What if you need to run some custom code, but only for a specific operation? We have 2 collection operations and 3 item operations. For the most part, by checking the ID, you can pretty much figure out which operation is being used. But if you start also using a patch operation or custom operations, then this would not be enough. Like many parts of API platform, a data persister has a normal interface, data persister interface, but also an optional, stronger interface that gives you access to extra info about what's going on. Change the interface to context-aware data persister interface. This extends data persister interface, and the difference now is that all the methods suddenly have an array context argument. Copy that and also add it to persist and down here on remove. Beautiful! To see what's inside this array, at the top of persist, dump context, and then go run the test again. And there it is. It has resource class, collection operation name, and a few other keys. 2 things about this. 1. This context is not the same as the serialization context array that we've talked about a lot. There is some overlap, but mostly this word context is just being reused. 2. The last 3 items relate to API Platform's event system and probably won't be useful here. The truly useful item is collection operation name, which will be called item operation name for an item operation, like a put request. I'll run all the user tests. And yep, there's a good example of both situations. Armed with this info, we are dangerous. Back in the persister, if context left square bracket item operation name, don't forget your $, question mark null to avoid an error when this key does not exist, equals put, then this is the put item operation. Log user %s is being updated and pass data arrow get ID. I love it. When we run the test now, they still pass. I am assuming that the logs are being written correctly. I would at least test this manually in a real app. By using the context and the data arrow get ID, we have a lot of control to execute custom code in the right situations. But things can get more complex. What if we need to run code only when a specific field changes from one value to another? For example, our cheese listing entity has an isPublished field, which so far isn't writable in our API at all. Next, let's make it possible for a user to publish their listing, but also execute some code when that happens.